So in 9.6, which is the topic of this video, we're going to look at what does it look like to factor trinomials where the leading coefficient is not 1. So everything in 9.5, where we played that game of what multiplies to that last value and what adds to the middle number, that was always with the case where a was 1. It was always just x squared out in front. So to introduce this idea, we're going to go backwards for a second. We're going to go back to foiling. So if we're going to FOIL 3x plus 5 times 2x plus 4, just a reminder, we would take 3x times 2x, that's 6x squared. Then we go outside, 3x times 4 is plus 12x. That's this. And then inside, 5 times 2x is 10x. And then lastly, 5 times 4 is 20. So all of a sudden you have 4 terms, but we know in the middle we can just combine those to make 22x, and everything else can just fall straight down. So what this means is that if we started with 6x squared plus 22x plus 20, that would factor to 3x plus 5 times 2x plus 4. That's going to be our goal today. Let's try another one, and then we'll talk about how we could do this in reverse. So foiling will go quicker here. 2x times 5x is 10x squared. Outside, 2x times 2 is 4x. This is negative 5x. And then this is negative 2. So we have 10x squared minus 1x minus 2. So that means that 10x squared minus x minus 2 would factor to 2x minus 1 times 5x plus 2. So what you're going to notice is in reality, the a part is always just this value times that value. 2x times 5x is 10x squared. 3x times 2x is 6x squared. And the c value is always the last two in the first outside inside last portion. So negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. 5 times 4 is 20. Where things get a little difficult is how do we figure out what value goes in the middle? And if we were doing this in reverse, we could break this down guessing and checking, but how do we figure out what value goes to the middle? So what we're going to do, well, before I say this, I want to preface, depending on your teacher or depending on which literature you read online, you're going to see maybe 3 or 4 main methods for how to do this type of factoring. I'm only going to teach you one method. If you want me to teach you others, I sure can. A couple of the common ones are guessing and checking. I don't like that just because it's a lot of guessing and checking. Just guessing and can take time if you're not super confident in your multiplication and division. The other option is kind of more algorithmic, where you don't really understand what you're doing. You just kind of follow a process. I used to teach it that way. And now I kind of go with a hybrid where we basically do this method in reverse. So let me show you how to do that. And then that's really all we're doing in this video. So I'm going to kind of walk us through it. This is our general process on the right, and then I'm going to kind of annotate what we're doing with 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 on the left for how we factor this. So if our a value is 2, our b value is negative 5, and our c value is negative 3, the first step we're going to do is find what a times c is. And a lot of times we can do this in our head, but I'm going to go ahead and write this down. 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. That's first step. And you can do that in your head because the next thing you're going to do is what values add to b, add to negative 5, but at the same time multiply to a times c. So in a way, this is just like what we did in 9.5. So what values multiply to negative 6 but add to negative 5? You can kind of think through that, but it's negative 6 and 1. Those multiply to negative 6 but add to negative 5. So now this is the cool part. What we're going to do now is we're going to break up negative 5x into these two pieces. So you have 2x squared minus 6x plus 1x. I'm going to put the 1 there just so we know what it is, minus 3. We're allowed to do that because negative 5x is the exact same thing as negative 6x plus 1x. In a way, this is the exact same place that we were here with 4 terms, where we broke this down. Remember, we're just working in reverse. Now what we do is we have 4 pieces. So we're going to factor this by breaking it down into 2 pairs. So we're going to group the first and the last pairs. I'm going to go ahead and do this in a different color and in a different line. So I have 2x squared minus 6x plus 1x minus 3. And now I'm going to factor each of these individually. So what can I factor out of 2x squared minus 6x? Well, I can take out a 2, and I can also take out an x. On the inside, then I'm left with x minus 3. If I'm looking here, I can't factor any of this out, but I can factor a 1 out. So if you can't factor anything, just factor out a 1. You don't need to write the 1, but I think it's helpful just to know what I have going on. And now this looks really complicated, but what's cool about this is we're basically done. We just have to do one more piece of factoring. We have to ask, given this whole term and this whole term, what do they have in common? Well, they have an x minus 3 in common. They both have an x minus 3. So we can actually factor out that x minus 3. So x minus 3 gets factored out, and then we're left with 2x plus 1. And we're all done. 2x squared minus 5x minus 3 factors to x minus 3 times 2x plus 1. Now, if you're a little confused on this step, what if instead of having x minus 3, I just had a y? What if this was 2xy plus 1y? My assumption would be most of us would understand we can factor out a y. And then we're left with 2x plus 1. This is the exact same thing, only instead of y, it's just x minus 3. And this is going to be our general process for all of these. It seems complicated, but once we do a few of them, I actually think this method is the fastest and easiest. So I'm going to go ahead and dive into another one, just because the more examples of this you see, probably the better. That's why this video is going to be a little longer than some of the other ones, just because I want to have more examples. So what if we have 3x squared plus 10x plus 8? Remember, our first step is to multiply a times c. 3 times 8 is 24. Now we have to figure out what numbers multiply. I'll write this out. AC is 24. What numbers multiply to 24 but add to 10? Well, it's not 8 and 3. It's not 2 and 12. It's going to be 6 and 4. 6 plus 4 is 10. 6 times 4 is 24. So now we break down 10x as 6x and 4x. 3x squared plus 6x plus 4x plus 8. Now we group those. Last time I did this as a separate line, but I'm going to go ahead and just do this, put parentheses in, and then we factor. Just looking at this binomial, 3x squared plus 6x, I can take out a 3, I can take out an x, and I'm left with x plus 2. 4x plus 8, I can factor out a 4, and I'm left with, you guessed it, x plus 2. And now if I'm looking at this whole term and that whole term, what they have in common, they have an x plus 2 in common. So an x plus 2 factors out, and what's left over is 3x plus 4. There's our factoring. So 3x squared plus 10x plus 8 factors out to x plus 2 times 3x plus 4. Let's do another one. Why not? 2x squared minus 3x minus 2. First step, we find AC. That's 2 times negative 2. That's negative 4. What values multiply to negative 4 but add to negative 3? Well, 1 and negative 4. So I'm going to break up the middle. I got 2x squared plus 1x minus 4x minus 2. That's an x. And now I'm going to break this down with parentheses. But a key thing here, I like keeping the negative inside, and then I need to put a plus in between. I always like to add between the two. So now we factor out here, 2x squared plus 1x. I can factor out an x, and I'm left with 2x plus 1. With negative 4x minus 2, I can factor out a negative 2, and I'm left with 2x plus 1. And now this term and that term have a 2x plus 1 in common. And I'm all done. So it's kind of a four-step situation. You find AC and figure out what adds to AC, break up the middle, group it, factor it, and then do your final factoring. We'll do one more, and then we're going to talk about one last topic, then we'll be done. So one more, we do 6 times negative 2 for our AC, negative 12. What multiplies to negative 12 but adds to 1? That'd be 4 and negative 3. So 6x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 2. Group them, add in between. What can we factor out of 6x squared and 4x? We can take out a 2x. We're left with 3x plus 2. Here we can take out just a negative 1. We're left with 3x plus 2. And then we can factor out a 3x plus 2. And we're left over with 2x minus 1. All done. So there's 4 good examples of that. One thing I want to mention is there's one other situation that could maybe trip you up with this method, and that would be something like this. So in all of the examples we've done before, there hasn't been a common factor that goes into everything. But in an example like this, 10x squared plus 14x plus 4, 10, 14, and 4 are all divisible by 2. They're all even. So before you do your factoring by grouping, you can take out a 2, and then you're left with 5x squared plus 7x plus 2. And then you can do your factoring like we've done. So AC is 10. What multiplies to 10 but adds to 7, 5, and 2. What we're going to do now is we're going to keep this 2 way on the outside. And we're left with 5x squared plus 5x plus 2x plus 2. Group in the middle. Keep the 2 outside. We can factor out a 5x here, and then we're left with x plus 1. We can factor out a 2 here, and we're left with x plus 1. And then finally, we can factor out an x plus 1, and then we have 5x plus 2 left over. And that's factored completely. So that wraps us up for 9.6. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. But try a couple of these, look at the video, rewatch it. This can be one of the harder sections that we do in Chapter 9.